representation.
So again, all we do,
Oh, okay.
wait,
Okay, so we need to start with the agenda.
okay. Adoption of agenda.
You're gonna call it to
Oh,
order?
okay, yeah, so, okay. So I call this meeting of January 21st for policy and priorities to order. I look and I see we have quorum, adoption of agenda. Do I have a resolution for the agenda, or do we, here we go. Resolution put forward by Councilor Trophy that the agenda for January 21st, regular meeting of committee, be adopted as circulated. All those in favor?
Just before you do that, Mr. Mayor, if I could just ask if the two items could be reversed to allow us to load the presentation. We have to get the presentation up.
Okay, so we won't read. So the clerk has asked that the two items appearing on the agenda be reversed. So then we'll do 5.1 and then
Yes.
4. So then to the top of the list goes 5.1, Meridian Community Center parking. And then immediately following that will be number 4, new business, the 2019 budget impact presentation.
I just need a motion.
So on the amended,
I just need a motion to
oh.
make that legal.
pardon me?
If someone could just make a motion.
Oh, well, we need a motion to, okay, Councilor Trophy puts that motion forward. So on the amended motion, all in favor?
That's the motion to amend.
Motion to amend, okay, carries. And then that the agenda for the January 21st, 2019 regular council meeting of committee be adopted as amended. All those in favor? Okay, against? Motion carries. Okay.
Okay, so the next item then is
5.1. Yep.
5.1.
Okay, so the next item, or the first item on the policy and priorities agenda is Meridian Community Center parking. This report was presented November 5th, 2018, and is brought forward for the information of this council. After reading the report, does anyone on council have comments? Oh, Councilor Wink.
So, through you, Mr. Mayor, I think those of us who attend the community center on a regular basis and for larger functions recognize that the parking issue is a real concern. And I think Ms. Weens has done a really good report on this. Comparing the Meridian Community Center to other facilities throughout the region, we are drastically underserved as far as parking spaces are concerned. I think one of the options that were provided in Ms. Weens' report suggested that we could perhaps do parking on part 4. So it's the area of land that's along Rice Road and Summerside Drive. And I think it's probably prudent on our part if we take that parcel off the market at this point in time until we make a decision on that. If we sell that land right now, we'll never get it back and we'll never resolve our parking problems.
Okay, thank you. Perhaps if I could count on the Director of Planning, we read your report, just for the residents, could you give us just a small synopsis of what council is looking at, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, certainly through you. So the previous council had requested that there be a report done with respect to the parking at the community center. And so that's where this report came from. And then the recommendation of this report was that because that council was in a lame duck position, that they couldn't make any decisions at that time. It would have to rest with this council. So the site plan that was approved for the community center provides for 265 parking spaces. That is in conformity with our zoning bylaw in terms of the amount of parking for the community center. So it was built in compliance with our zoning bylaw requirements. We undertook a look at what the other parking is for some other similar types of facilities. I mean, no two facilities are the same, but we looked at the Vale Center in Port Colborne, the Gale Center in Niagara Falls, and the Seymour Hanna complex in St. Catharines. All of those have arenas, and some have more arenas than ours. Some have additional sports or fitness areas, and some have, I think like the Gale Center has larger seating capacity than ours have. So they are all a bit different, but then we took a look at them, looked at the floor area of these buildings, the types of activities that are offered in those buildings, looked at the number of parking spaces that were being provided, and then came down with a parking space to floor area ratio for those facilities, and compared them against what we have at the Pelham Community Center. So the parking spaces on a floor area ratio range between one space per 19 square meters and one space per 23 square meters of floor area to those three comparators, as compared to one space per 50 square meters of floor area to the Pelham Meridian Community Center. So that's the comparison that we undertook. We then took a look at what's identified as Part 4, and as Councillor Wink indicated, that's the piece of property on fronting on Summersides Boulevard and Rice Road. That property currently does not have any offers on it. The other two properties that are shown on the plan do. And so we looked at that, and we estimated, we did a preliminary plan or layout of how parking could be accommodated on that site. Approximately 200 additional parking spaces could be accommodated on that site. If you just did the northern half of that site, it would be 90 parking spaces. If you did the southern half of the site, it would be 110, but if you did it all, it would be about 200 parking spaces that could be accommodated. And then that, if we did the full 200, that would provide you a ratio of one parking space per 28 square meters of floor area, which is more consistent with what these other other facilities have in other municipalities. So that's kind of the analysis that we undertook with respect to kind of options for providing parking or additional parking for the Meridian Community Center at that time.
Thank you. Before you sit down, please, would you say that it's a correct assumption or statement, perhaps, that now that Silver Stick is behind us, and thanks to our Director of Recreation getting buses and what have you, it came and went, and I didn't hear that many complaints about the parking. With Silver Stick out of the way, the urgency has somewhat slackened on this decision?
I think Silver Stick is certainly a large event that we have. There was something like in the order of 3,000 people there on the opening night, so that was a big event. And when any municipality has those kind of activities in their communities and that number of people going, they do exactly what we did in terms of finding shuttles and bus service to bring people in and to manage the parking, because Silver Stick is not something that happens every weekend. It's a once a year kind of thing. It's the kind of the extreme end of parking demand and parking needs. And I think as any parent that's gone to tournaments, I mean, they're often, when you go to other cities, you're looking for parking.
Yes, yes, indeed.
It's not unusual.
No.
That's kind of the expectation because tournaments do bring in, multiple teams at multiple times, pardon me, to a facility. So, certainly the efforts that, you know, the Parks and Recreation and facility staff and the bylaw staff had in terms of, you know, putting together a parking plan and a parking program and then, managing that plan and program was certainly a testament to their efforts and their work and coordination in doing that. So I'm not aware that we have another large event like that planned in the next 6 or 7 months. So yeah, I think it is fair to say that, you know, the immediacy of that need or pressure is, you know, is not as heightened as it was 2 weeks ago when we were faced with that tournament coming at us.
Exactly. I'm thinking of the Pelham Home Show and the Art Show, but those are both events, I believe, spread over at least 2 days, and of course the evening, and it's an all-day event where people come and go.
That's correct. People come and go, and again, those kind of events, when you go to the home show in St. Catharines, you're looking for parking.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, you're not always getting parking right at that facility, and same with other communities.
That's
So, you know, it is understandable that there will be times that even this additional 200 parking spaces, if those were to come online, that would not be enough parking for the community center. There will be times that happens and that occurs, and that's fairly normal and understandable.
Great, thank you. And now if I may turn to the CAO, if we, in the next several months, decide to go with the Port 4 option, and if we didn't have the money right away to pave it, the option would also be just to level and gravel, true enough?
That could be one temporary solution, Mr. Mayor, you're correct.
Yes, okay. So, yeah, so we do have time to think about it. And we'll just have to see how budgetary restraints come down the tube, and we'll make the decision as required. Okay, excellent. Oh, I'm sorry?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there was a suggestion from Councillor Wink that the property be taken off the market.
Okay.
Is that something that council would like to consider tonight, just to prevent that from potential offers and complications?
Yes, thank you. Yes. And go ahead, Councilor Wink.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if we take it off the market, there's nothing that precludes us from putting it back on the market at a later date.
That's correct.
But if we get an offer right now,
Yes,
if someone came in with cash offer, you gotta sell it.
yes. Do you think we'd be irresponsible and sell? The temptation would be
The
there.
temptation's there, but
Yes.
as I said before, once you sell an asset, you
Yes.
can never get that asset back.
Yes, exactly. No, that's good thinking, yes. Just ask for consensus on council.
No, I would be looking for a motion, and that would be a recommendation that would be ratified at the next council meeting, February 4th.
So I need a motion now?
Yes, I would be
Yeah.
looking for a motion.
Okay, so we need a motion then from counselor, to state that we want to take the land off the real estate market until the time comes that we've made a decision on it. So, yes, Councilor Hahn, you will put that motion forward?
And that's for the entirety of Part 4, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, I believe it is, yes.
Second.
So we just have to wait. Oh, and so do we need a seconder?
No, we're in
No,
committee.
not for committee. Okay, so we'll just wait till the damn clerk does her magic.
I have it. So, this is a motion to remove Part 4 from the real estate listings
Yes.
at this time,
Yes.
made by Councillor Hahn.
Pardon?
Made by Councillor Hahn, so
yes.
now you just
Yep.
call for any further discussion and a vote
Oh,
on the
okay.
motion.
So any further discussion on this motion? Okay, so the motion is
All those in favor?
All those in favor? And all those against? Motion carries.
Okay, and then I just need a motion to receive that request for information.
Okay, and then we have a motion by Councillor Wink that the Policy and Priorities Committee recommend that council receive for information the Meridian Community Center parking dated November 5th, 2018. All those in favor of this? All those against? Motion carries. Okay,
Okay, and then moving to the budget.
so now we go to new business.
You're going back up here?
Yes, which is the 2019 budget impact presentation. Made by our treasurer, director of treasurer, Teresa Quinlan.
She's the Minister of Finance, where are you?
Just dotted.
It's gonna be her nickname, the Minister.
Yep.
Mr. Mayor, I'm here tonight with the budget impact summary. And so, what this is just a point in time where I come to council and just highlight some of the issues that we are facing as we are finalizing the 2019 operating budget. So as part of the budget schedule tonight, council received the capital budget for review. So council has 2 weeks to review the capital budget. I'll come back on February the 4th and do a presentation on the capital budget. But this presentation tonight is just to give you a highlight of some of the issues that we're facing. So the first one is a provincial landscape. So as everyone know, we have a new provincial government. And with the new government, there are a lot of uncertainties with the grant allocations. To date, we have not received any announcements made for the 2019 capital grants. So all grants right now are under review by the government, the provincial government. And so the assumption that you're going to see in the 2019 operating budget is that we're going to use the same levels of grant as we received in 2018. So some of the other impacts, there's a community improvement plan of $150,000. That was approved by the previous council for this amount. So this is coming off the top. This is added to the 2018 budget. There was a transit increase of $146,571 if the second bus grant is received. So we were awarded a $500,000 grant, $100,000 for 5 years. Right now, we haven't received an announcement from the provincial government whether they're going to fulfill that grant or not. So in the 2019 operating budget, we're going to assume that the grant is not coming, just to be conservative right now. And so that's the assumption that we're making right now. In the 2019 budget, we're going to have 12 months of operating the Meridian Community Center versus 6 months that we had in 2018. So we're currently reviewing the strategies to mitigate some of the increases overall, so we're working on that. We've seen cost increases in insurance and in utilities, so these are just some of the impacts. The cost of living increase is between 2% and 2.5%. Property tax growth for 2018 is 2.01%. So this is new property taxes that have been added to the base for 2018, and that's about $252,000 of new revenue for the town, so that's a positive. The 2019 reserve transfers that are made for capital are going to be at the same level as 2018. The debenture principal and interest are at the same level as 2018. And so in my last presentation at the open house, I showed this slide where it says, where do my property taxes go? And you can see the breakdown between the town, the region, and education to the province. And so about 39% of the property taxes go to the town. So when there's an increase to your property taxes, it's only it's based on the 39%, not the whole amount, because that's the region, education. There was a question asked from, I think Councillor Kaur last time at the open house about the assessment value. And so I just wanted to give a little bit of an update on that number that's on there. That's the average assessment value. So that number is based on the 2016 assessment that was done on your property taxes. It's not market value. So when people look at that, they say, wow, that's kind of low because my house is worth, $500,000, whatever it's worth, 400,000. That's market value. This is assessment value. So when homes are assessed, it takes 4 years for that increase in the assessment value to for your home to be up to that value that was done. So that's 2016 assessment, and I think we're in the third year of that. So it's not even the full assessment. So that's why that's the average amount, and that's different than market value of today. So budget impact. So what's a 1% increase to the tax levy? So 1% increase to the tax levy gives us an additional $130,000 of additional revenue to the budget. So when you're looking at the overall increases to the budget, every $130,000 of an increase is equal to 1% increase to the tax levy. What's the impact to the average taxpayer of this increase? I thought this is helpful when people see these numbers. And so 4% increase to your tax levy is approximately $27.42 a year, or $2.29 a month. A 6% is $65.93 a year, or $5.49 a month. 8% is $101.44. So that just shows you that even though the percentage may seem high, but because it's only 39% of your total taxes, the number is not as high as someone would think it would be when you hear, oh my goodness, it's a 4% increase. It's really a $27 a year increase. So I just wanted I just think this was helpful for council to understand, what the numbers mean and the impact to the residents and to the budget on those numbers. And that's it.
Thank you very much.
So I'm coming on February the 25th is when the draft operating budget and the water wastewater budget will be given to council, and then you'll have time to review it, and then a presentation will be done on March the 4th. And that's just sticking to the schedule that we have. So I don't know if there are any questions.
Thank you for that presentation. Any questions?
Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor
The
Forrest.
4% at $27.42, we don't, as the town of Pelham doesn't get it all, we still have to pay the region and education out of that, or is that that's our portion?
Yeah, so our budget is only the town's portion, is our budget. So when we assess the taxes, the region tells us what they need, and then we apply what they need onto onto the billing. So that's the town's portion.
Councilor.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. When you say the property tax growth in your one slide is 2.01%, which is approximately $250,000 of new revenue, is it fair to say with that new revenue, there's new expenses that go with that as well?
No, that's just new property. Let's say new houses have been built,
Yeah.
and they just come onto the tax roll. So no, it's just.
But with that new houses, again, sorry, through you, there's more snow removal,
Yeah,
garbage,
yes,
there's
yes.
more services required
Yes,
for that.
yes.
So it's not a true $250,000 to the town, because there's gonna be more expenses that go with it.
There'll be more expenses, yes, especially if a whole new subdivision, so let's say East Fountain Hill, once it gets all developed, then we're gonna have additional costs to clear the roads and snow removal, yes.
And my second question, sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor, the 4% at $27.42 per year, that's the portion that the town gets, because it's based on 39%. So then when the region increases theirs at 2% or 3%, whatever the region tax hike goes, then that goes to that other. So it looks kind of low right now at $27 a year per household, but it could realistically be much higher than that.
Well, it could be depending on what the region's
What the region
increase is,
does.
but then the region's increase is 48% of that total amount.
Thank you.
What else? Oh, Councilor Hahn.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. The community improvement plan, so you've got 150,000. Can you explain, A, what that is, and B, what the history is? So what has that been spent on, how long we've had it?
Okay, so I'm gonna pass that on to Darren.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the Community Improvement Program is an incentive program for the business community in CIP areas, of which the town has designated the commercial areas, parts of those commercial areas anyways, like historic downtown, we say, for a CIP program. And there's a number of different incentives. Probably the most well-known is the facade improvement program. So if a business is looking to renovate, there are incentives for them not just to focus on the inside, but to also focus on the outside of the building. And there is dollars that the town contributes to that business to do certain facade improvements. So it may be to, change the siding, change the veneer, change signs, change, the look of a building, so to speak. And there have been a few takers on the CIP program along Pelham Street, and we have another applicant that had been approved already, and that is for a project in Fenwick at the fire station number 2. So those are the CIP obligations, and there is the obligation, as the treasurer had mentioned, for $150,000 that has been committed in CIP payment or CIP grants to businesses that have already applied.
So further to that, then, what's the maximum any one business can get of the 150?
I might just defer to the director of planning for that specific cost.
Mr. Mayor, through you, there are different programs, and they have different amounts. The CAO commented about the facade improvement program, and I believe the maximum amount is $10,000 for a front facade. I'm gonna have to double check, but for a front facade, and so that's the maximum, but they also have to, put in their own money to do that. The money comes to them after the fact. The region also does have some matching programs as well. So there are a number of programs, and it depends what it is that somebody's applying for. One of the, I guess, larger ones is the residential intensification. And so if you're adding residential units in the community improvement plan areas, which are our downtown Fonthill and downtown Fenwick areas, there's an amount of up to $15,000 per unit that you could qualify for if you're adding residential units. Again, residential development in the downtown supports the downtown businesses and makes it an active and thriving and lively place.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, could the band shell apply for an application for that? It's improvement, community improvement plan?
Town property.
The band shell is on town property, and the band shell and the property is town-owned land, so we would just be granting ourselves.
Councilor Hildebrand.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, does this only apply to existing properties, like the Baxter Lane development, when that occurs? Can they apply for this and get money on that plan?
Mr. Mayor, through you, if the Baxter Lane property, and I believe they are in the community improvement plan, their development, if it meets the criteria, they would be able to apply. Council is required to approve it, so it still comes to council for approval before any decision is made.
Thank you. Councilman Stewart?
Okay, aside from the grant money, what is the amount of tax relief associated with that, like in capping the mill rate for a length of time or development fees? I'm sorry?
Are you referring to the CIP?
The CIP.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, through you, so there is no capping for the commercial portion of the taxation. If you're adding residential lands, there is one of the programs is a agreement where they get tax relief by adding residential units, and that tax relief is for a period of 10 years, and it's a sliding scale that they get a percentage of the tax rebated back to them. So they get the highest amount of that percentage rebated back to them in the first year, and then it goes less and less up to 10 years. And again, that is money to help provide for the investment into the downtown, and to provide for the uptake of rental of these residential units.
Council
For
Court?
you, again, Mr. Mayor, if we didn't receive the grant for the transit, where would that money go back to? The 146,000?
Well, right now, it's just part of the increase in the 2019 budget. So it just comes off, it just alleviates the pressure to the budget.
Okay, so if we don't get this second
Yes.
grant, that just goes back?
Yes.
It goes off our books?
But yes.
Okay.
Anyone else? So I have a question, to the director. I'm kind of, excuse me, I'm kind of disappointed, amazed, whatever word, that the property tax growth is 2%, which is approximately 252,000 new revenue, because it seems like there's so much happening out in East Font Hill, Rice Road, both sides of Rice Road, but I can only imagine or guess that that will take longer to get on the rolls. Is that what it is?
Once the property has to be, I mean, a lot of the subdivisions are currently being built, so
Yes.
once they're done, then they come on the roll.
I see. And are the buildings, what decides when they start getting, is it residency or when does that happen?
Mr. Mayor, through you, we submit monthly reports to MPAC, the Municipal Property Assessment Corporation, on building permit activity. So when a building permit is taken out, MPAC is notified of that, and so they then would be able to, the information also includes kind of the value of construction on that report that we send to them on a individual property by property basis. They then plug that into their system and update their records. It's not immediate, and it can take upwards to almost 2 years before we start to see the money flowing through, but MPAC does it again across the province for all municipalities.
Great. So then when you need some documentation from MPAC, and then that's when they get put on the tax rolls then?
So the trigger is that building permit. That's the trigger when we send them the report on building permit activity on a monthly basis. So they get the address, the value of the construction, what it was for, and so then they know that that assessment is increased. They also get occupancy, so then they'll know that when occupancy was granted to that building, and so now it's occupied, so the value is there, the construction is completed. During the stages of construction, of course, you know, they don't come out till really until the occupancy is completed.
Excellent. And if I, one more question to you, if I may, is, and as, at the application or the granting of the building permit, the town does get, that's when the town gets development charges back or from the house?
That's correct. The development charges are collected at building permit stage. So we collect development charges for the town, also on behalf of the region and on behalf of the separate school board, but those are all collected at building permit stage.
Okay.
And then we have to disseminate that money on a quarterly basis back to the region and the separate school board as
Okay.
well.
Okay, thank you very much.
For you,
Oh,
Mr.
sorry,
Mayor,
Mr. Council
to the
Court.
Director of Finance, would we have any numbers for the MCC for 2019? Or are you working on that now?
Yes, I'll bring that with the operating budget.
And the other follow-up question would be, do we have numbers for the 6 months in 2018? And I'm sorry, I know I ask that question all the time to you.
Well, right now, you know, that year end is December 31st, and it's you know, third week in January. What we're waiting for are some of the final invoices for the utilities. They're a little bit behind. It takes at least, you know, the hydro,
Yes.
those bills. So we haven't received December's bills yet for those. So we're just in the process of completing year end and getting all of the invoices to get a proper snapshot of what, you know, the first 6 months are. So that will come with the presentation with the operating budget. We'll show you the first 6 months.
And through you, Mayor, do you think we hit that budget for the MCC for 2018?
Well, we brought it forward in, earlier in the fall that there's certain line items that we are over, and we're just assessing whether we have savings in other line items. But right now, there's certain lines that are over the budget.
Thank you.
Any other questions of the director? Thank you very much. A motion put forward by Councillor Stewart that the Policy and Priorities Committee recommend that council receive for information the 2019 budget impact presentation by the Treasurer Director of Corporate Services. All those in favor? All those against? Motion carries. Motion passed.
The cannabis was part of the consent agenda
Yeah.
under the recommendations right here. It's approved. It's okay.
Motion put forward by Councillor Kaur that this regular meeting of committee be adjourned until the next regular meeting scheduled for February 4th, 2019, following council. All those in favor? All those against? Motion carries. I wonder if I could explain that. Sure. Yeah. And where was that? Just a minute, please.
On the consent agenda, from council, this item right here, and the recommendations were.
I think there was some chatter about, he was just asking.
So, just so everyone knows, and it's nice of you to all stay to the end, the resolution to opt out of the marijuana retail option, it was in the consent agenda, so it has been passed and approved. So I just wanted to make that clear to everyone. I myself was wondering when it was going to come up. And also in closing, I would just like to tell Mr. Jeffs that you were on my mind way too many times when I was in Florida this last weekend, because Mr. Jeffs had forecasted, well, what if a storm happens and we can't get this done? So you were about 1 day off, but it was pretty close. Okay? Did I already, we adjourned? Okay, meeting.